The Galactic Union's High Command Chamber was a place of cold efficiency. Towering holograms of fleet movements filled the air, and the low hum of machinery provided an omnipresent backdrop to the deliberations of the Union's leaders. Representatives from dozens of species sat around the circular council table, each adorned in the regalia of their respective civilizations. At the head of the table stood Supreme Commander Athel Kor, a towering figure with iridescent scales shimmering in the artificial light. The meeting had been called to discuss the allocation of resources and strategies for the impending conflict with the Exarnax, a warlike species known for their ruthless conquests and overwhelming technological superiority. Amid the discussions, the topic of humanity arose, eliciting a wave of quiet chuckles and knowing glances among the council members. Humanity had been a late addition to the Galactic Union. Their admission was largely a political gesture, a token of the Union's inclusivity, rather than a recognition of any true value they brought to the table. The humans were resourceful, yes, but their technology was primitive compared to that of the advanced civilizations seated around the table. Their fleet was small, their tactics unsophisticated, and their history marred by infighting. They were seen as enthusiastic underdogs, good for moral diversity but hardly capable of contributing to the war effort in any meaningful way. It was Councillor Velthra of the Serac Coalition who proposed the idea. Her sleek, fur-covered form leaned forward as her golden eyes sparkled with amusement. "Let us provide our human allies with the Omega launcher," she suggested, her voice carrying a tone of mock diplomacy. "A gesture of goodwill to show our commitment to their inclusion in this noble fight." There was a brief pause before the chamber erupted into laughter. The Omega launcher was a relic, a failed weapon from an earlier era of Union experimentation, designed to harness subspace energy for massive destructive force. It had proven unreliable, with a tendency to overheat, misfire, or worse, detonate on its own. After several catastrophic failures, the weapon had been decommissioned, relegated to little more than a cautionary tale in engineering circles. "It's not just faulty, it's dangerous," scoffed Councillor Ormel, a crystalline entity whose body refracted the light into a dazzling array of colors. "A malfunctioning weapon in the hands of humans? They'll destroy themselves before the Exarnax even arrive." But Velthra's proposal gained traction. The humans, naive and eager to prove themselves, would never suspect the gift to be a slight. Instead, they would likely accept it with gratitude, putting themselves at risk and removing a potential liability from the Union's plans. Supreme Commander Athel Kor raised a clawed hand, silencing the murmurs. "Let it be done," he declared, his voice a deep rumble. "The Omega launchers will be transferred to the human fleet immediately. Inform their representatives that this is a sign of our solidarity." On Earth, the announcement of the Galactic Union's gift was met with a mix of surprise and cautious optimism. The human delegation had long felt the unspoken condescension of their allies, but this gesture appeared genuine. Captain Elena Monroe, commander of the HSS Resolute, and a prominent figure in humanity's military leadership, was the first to receive the news. Standing on the bridge of her ship, Elena reviewed the specifications of the Omega launcher, her sharp eyes narrowing as she scanned the data. The weapon was impressive on paper, a subspace energy cannon capable of devastating entire fleets with a single shot. But buried in the technical details were warnings: unstable, requires frequent calibration, and not recommended for long-term use. The message accompanying the delivery was laced with diplomatic platitudes. The Galactic Union recognizes the bravery and ingenuity of the human race. As a token of our shared commitment to peace and prosperity, we bestow upon your fleet the advanced Omega launcher system. Elena couldn't shake the feeling that the gift was too good to be true. "This feels like someone's idea of a joke," she muttered under her breath, earning a glance from her tactical officer, Lieutenant Marcus Yates. "Even if it is," Marcus said, leaning casually against a console, "we've never backed down from a challenge. If they think we can't handle it, let's prove them wrong." Elena's lips curved into a faint smile. "You've got a point. Let's see what this thing can do." The Omega launchers were distributed across the human fleet, and teams of engineers and scientists immediately got to work. The initial tests were disastrous. The weapon's power core overheated within minutes, and one unlucky technician narrowly avoided a fatal explosion. But where other species would have discarded the project as hopeless, humanity saw an opportunity. The humans were known for their ability to adapt and innovate under pressure. In workshops and laboratories across Earth's orbital stations, engineers pored over the schematics, dissecting every circuit and component. They discovered that the Omega launcher's flaws were not inherent, but rather the result of incomplete design and improper calibration. It was as if the weapon had been abandoned before its full potential could be realized. One breakthrough came from Dr. Aisha Patel, a brilliant physicist who specialized in energy manipulation. She proposed using Earth's unique energy crystals, naturally occurring formations found deep within the planet's crust, to stabilize the weapon's subspace fluctuations. The idea was unconventional and risky, but it was the kind of out-of-the-box thinking that defined humanity's approach to problem-solving. "We're not just fixing this thing," Dr. Patel declared during a briefing. "We're reinventing it." After weeks of relentless effort, the modified Omega launcher was ready for a live demonstration. The test took place on the outskirts of the Sol system, with the HSS Resolute as the primary platform. Captain Monroe stood on the bridge, her crew buzzing with anticipation. "Fire the weapon," Elena commanded, her voice steady. The Omega launcher hummed to life, its power core glowing with an intense blue light. For a moment, the ship's systems flickered as the weapon drew massive amounts of energy. Then, with a deafening roar, it unleashed a beam of concentrated subspace energy that tore through the target, a derelict asteroid the size of a small moon. The asteroid shattered into 1,000 pieces, the shockwave rippling through space. The bridge erupted into cheers, but Elena remained composed, her mind already racing with possibilities. This was no ordinary weapon. This was humanity's chance to change the narrative, to prove that they were more than just the underdogs of the Galactic Union. News of humanity's progress spread quietly at first. The Galactic Union's engineers, monitoring from afar, were baffled by the reports. The humans had not only made the Omega launchers operational but had seemingly improved their efficiency. Some dismissed it as propaganda, while others began to worry. Back on Earth, Captain Monroe and her team prepared for the next phase, deploying the modified Omega launchers in live combat. What had started as a joke to the Galactic Union was now becoming something far more serious. Humanity, underestimated and mocked, was on the verge of rewriting the rules of galactic warfare. The HSS Resolute was now the pride of the human fleet, not because it was the largest or most advanced, but because it carried the first fully operational Omega launcher. The weapon, once a symbol of mockery, had become a testament to humanity's ingenuity. Captain Elena Monroe stood on the bridge, watching as her engineers made final adjustments before the weapon's first live deployment. The Galactic Union had called for reinforcements in a critical battle near the edge of the Andran sector, where the Xarnax invaders had begun their relentless assault. The human fleet had been assigned to a support role, an unspoken acknowledgement of their perceived inferiority. They were to follow behind the main Union forces, providing minimal backup while the more advanced species did the heavy lifting. Elena, however, had other plans. The Andranus sector was a chaotic scene of destruction. The Xarnax fleet, with its jagged black ships bristling with weapons, tore through the Union's defensive lines with ease. Explosions lit up the void as smaller Union vessels were obliterated, their remains scattering into the endless dark. The HSS Resolute and its accompanying fleet arrived on the fringes of the battlefield, their modest ships dwarfed by the massive cruisers of their allies. The comms channel buzzed with panic and orders from the Union's flagship, the Eternal Radiance. "Human fleet, maintain position and await further instructions," barked Supreme Commander Athel Kor, his voice tinged with impatience. "Do not engage unless ordered." Elena clenched her fists. She knew the Union didn't trust the humans to make a difference, but she also knew they had an ace up their sleeve. Turning to her tactical officer, Marcus Yates, she issued her first order. Charge the Omega launcher. Target the largest Arnax vessel. Marcus hesitated. Captain, the Union hasn't cleared us to engage. They don't need to, Elena replied, her voice calm but firm. We didn't come here to watch. The weapon's charging sequence began, and the ship's systems flickered as the launcher drew power. On the main view screen, the Sarnax dreadnought loomed like a shadow of death, its massive cannons raining destruction on the Union forces. Target locked. Marcus confirmed. Fire. Elena commanded. The Omega launcher roared to life, releasing a blinding beam of energy. It struck the Sarnax dreadnought dead center, cutting through its shields as if they didn't exist. For a moment, there was silence on the comms as the dreadnought erupted into a brilliant explosion, its debris scattering in all directions. The Union fleet fell silent, stunned by what they had just witnessed. The Eternal Radiance hailed the HSS Resolute almost immediately. Captain Monroe, what have you done? Athol Kor demanded, his holographic image flickering with rage. We did our job, Elena replied. You're welcome. Before Athol Kor could respond, the Sarnax fleet began to regroup, their movements now cautious. The destruction of their dreadnought had caught them off guard, and their formation faltered. Elena seized the opportunity. Relay coordinates to the rest of the fleet, she ordered. We're moving in. As the human ships advanced, the modified Omega launchers on their other vessels joined the fray. Each shot from the weapon was devastating, slicing through Sarnax ships with precision. The Union forces, emboldened by the human success, began to rally. For the first time in the battle, the Sarnax appeared to be on the defensive. In the chaos, Supreme Commander Athol Kor begrudgingly acknowledged the effectiveness of the human fleet. Redirect Union forces to support the human offensive, he ordered, his tone filled with reluctance. Meanwhile, aboard the HSS Resolute, the crew worked tirelessly to keep the Omega launcher operational. The weapon's immense power came at a cost. Its energy demands strained the ship's systems, and every shot required precise recalibration to avoid overheating. Dr. Aisha Patel, monitoring the weapon from the engineering bay, coordinated her team with rapid-fire instructions. Elena, we need more time between shots, Aisha called over the comms. The core's temperature is spiking, and we risk a meltdown. Elena nodded, weighing the risks. Do what you can, Aisha. We need every shot to count. The Sarnax, realizing the threat posed by the human fleet, began targeting their ships with renewed ferocity. The HSS Resolute shuddered as enemy fire struck its hull, alarms blaring across the bridge. Marcus turned to Elena, his face pale. Shields are at 30%. We can't take another direct hit like that. Divert power from non-essential systems, Elena said. Keep the Omega launcher online at all costs. The tide of the battle was shifting, but the Sarnax were not beaten yet. Their flagship, a monstrous vessel bristling with weapons, moved to the forefront of their formation. Its cannons unleashed a barrage that tore through the Union's ranks, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Elena knew the Omega launcher was their only chance to neutralize the flagship, but it would take a coordinated effort. She opened a channel to the Union fleet. This is Captain Monroe of the HSS Resolute. We're targeting the Sarnax flagship, but we need cover. If you want to win this battle, now's the time to work together. The response was immediate. Ships from across the Union moved to protect the HSS Resolute, forming a defensive perimeter around the human vessel. For the first time, the Union was fighting as a cohesive unit, inspired by humanity's boldness. As the Omega launcher charged, the flagship's weapons locked onto the HSS Resolute. The ship shook violently as it absorbed hit after hit, its shields on the verge of collapse. Almost there, Aisha's voice crackled over the comms. Just a few more seconds. Captain, we're not going to make it, Marcus shouted as another explosion rocked the ship. Elena gripped the edge of her console, her knuckles white. We don't need to. Fire the weapon. The Omega launcher unleashed its full power, the beam striking the Xarnax flagship with unrelenting force. The ship's shields held for a moment before buckling under the assault. The beam tore through its hull, igniting a chain reaction that consumed the vessel in a massive explosion. The battlefield fell silent as the Xarnax fleet, leaderless and disoriented, began to retreat. Cheers erupted across the Union fleet, but aboard the HSS Resolute, there was no celebration, only relief. As the human fleet regrouped, Supreme Commander Athel Kor contacted Elena once more. His expression was a mix of frustration and reluctant respect. "Captain Monroe," he began, his tone measured. "Your actions were reckless and insubordinate, but they saved us." Elena met his gaze, her voice calm but firm. "We did what needed to be done. That's what humanity brings to the table." Athel Kor nodded slowly. "Perhaps we underestimated you." As the transmission ended, Elena allowed herself a small smile. The battle had been won, but she knew the war was far from over. Humanity had proven its worth, but the challenges ahead would demand even greater ingenuity and courage. The aftermath of the battle in the Andranus sector rippled across the Galactic Union like a shockwave. Word of humanity's audacious actions and the devastating effectiveness of their Omega launchers spread far and wide. What had once been seen as a token gesture by the Union's high command had become a symbol of human ingenuity, courage, and defiance. But as the galaxy began to take notice, not everyone was pleased. Supreme Commander Athel Kor convened an emergency session of the Galactic Council aboard the Eternal Radiance. The chamber, a grand hall of polished crystal and shimmering light, was filled with representatives from the Union's most powerful civilizations. Elena Monroe was invited to attend as humanity's representative, a gesture that was as much an olive branch as it was a summons to account for her actions. Elena entered the council chamber wearing the sharp black uniform of the Earth Defense Fleet. Her presence drew murmurs and side glances from the other delegates, many of whom had never interacted with a human before. She felt the weight of their skepticism but held her head high. She was here not as a subordinate but as an equal. Supreme Commander Athel Kor opened the session, his deep voice reverberating through the chamber. The battle in the Andranus sector was a pivotal moment in our war against the Xarnax, but it has also raised questions about the role of humanity in our alliance. Councillor Velthra, the Serac delegate who had originally suggested gifting the Omega launcher to the humans, was the first to speak. Her furred face betrayed a mix of amusement and unease. "Captain Monroe, your fleet's actions were unconventional. While effective, they were also reckless. What would have happened if your Omega launchers had failed? If your modifications had backfired?" Elena stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. "With all due respect, Counselor, failure was not an option for us. Humanity has always thrived under pressure. We adapt, we innovate, and we overcome. The Omega launchers didn't fail because we refused to let them fail." Another delegate, a towering insectoid from the Exeltar Empire, clicked its mandibles. "And what of your defiance of Union orders? Your fleet engaged without permission, risking the lives of countless soldiers." Elena squared her shoulders. "We saw an opportunity to change the tide of battle, and we took it. Waiting for permission would have cost lives, yours and ours." The room fell silent as the delegates considered her words. Supreme Commander Athel Kor finally spoke, his tone neutral. "Your actions have proven humanity's resourcefulness, but they have also exposed a critical flaw in our alliance, the inability to see the potential in those we underestimate." As the council deliberated, a silent figure watched from the shadows of the chamber. Admiral Varish of the Xarnax, a high-ranking defector who had been working with the Union as a strategic advisor, listened intently. To him, humanity's triumph was more than a victory, it was a warning. The Xarnax had long relied on their technological superiority, But if humans could turn a flawed weapon into a game-changer, what else were they capable of? Varish left the chamber unnoticed and sent a coded message to his former masters. The humans are more dangerous than we anticipated. They must be neutralized before they become a true threat. Back aboard the HSS Resolute, Elena received news of the Council's decision. The Union had voted to grant humanity greater autonomy within the Alliance, recognizing their contributions and potential. But the victory felt hollow. The Yurgzarnaks were retreating for now, but the war was far from over. Dr. Aisha Patel joined Elena on the bridge, holding a datapad filled with reports. We've confirmed the Omega launchers are fully operational on all our ships. The modifications are holding steady, but I still worry about long-term stability. These weapons weren't meant to handle this kind of power. Elena nodded. We'll keep pushing them as far as they'll go. The Yurgzarnaks won't give us the luxury of time. Marcus Yates, her tactical officer, interrupted their conversation. Captain, incoming transmission from the Eternal Radiance. It's Supreme Commander Athel Kor. Elena sighed. Patch him through. The holographic image of Athel Kor appeared, his scaled face unreadable. Captain Monroe, I hope you're prepared for what's to come. The Zarnaks are regrouping, and we've intercepted intelligence suggesting they're targeting Earth. Elena's blood ran cold. The Zarnaks had never attacked a homeworld directly, preferring to engage in battles far from civilian populations. A direct assault on Earth would be catastrophic. They're coming for us because we've become a threat, Elena said. We'll be ready. The Zarnaks fleet arrived in the Sol system weeks later, their ships blotting out the stars as they closed in on Earth. The human fleet, bolstered by reinforcements from the Union, formed a defensive line near the moon. On the surface, Earth's population braced for the worst. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Zarnaks unleashed their full might, their weapons tearing through Union ships with brutal efficiency. But humanity's Omega launchers proved to be the equalizer. One by one, Sarnax's dreadnoughts fell, their hulking forms reduced to rubble. Elena commanded the fleet from the HSS Resolute, her voice cutting through the chaos. Focus fire on their flagship. Take it out, and the rest will crumble. The Omega launcher charged for what felt like an eternity, as the Ernex flagship targeted the HSS Resolute. A direct hit would destroy the human ship, but Elena refused to back down. Fire, she shouted. The beam struck the Yurgzarnak's flagship, piercing its core. The resulting explosion lit up the void, signaling the end of the battle. The remaining Zarnak ships fled, their morale shattered. With the Zarnaks defeated, the galaxy entered a fragile peace. Humanity's role in the war had reshaped the Union, forcing its members to acknowledge the value of adaptability and resilience. Earth became a symbol of hope, its people celebrated as innovators and survivors. Elena stood on the bridge of the HSS Resolute, watching the sun rise over Earth through the viewport. Marcus joined her, a rare smile on his face. Looks like we've earned our place in the galaxy, he said. Elena nodded. We've proven what we're capable of. Now it's up to us to keep pushing forward. As the first rays of sunlight bathed the bridge, Elena allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. Humanity had rewritten its story, not as a weak link in the chain, but as a force to be reckoned with, and the galaxy would never forget.